Republicans first.
How's the long with left? Okay. Oh, yeah, it's kind of done with it.
I was just getting a text from our other producer. I was at the pool camera all morning, and our other producer took over me for there. And right as it broke up, she was like, "I was just hit, and screamed at, and like sworn at, all within the span of 3 minutes."
Really?
And that's how bad it's gotten.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Elmer's, he's
Yeah, you're going wherever works. Apparently, some other reporter like moved our pool mic stand without us telling them they could.
good.
Yeah, just like
Like, I'll help Gary.
it was so weird. They just like picked it up and moved it in the middle of Longworth. We were like, "You can't move our shit."
Good afternoon, everyone. We just had a fascinating discussion at lunch with Condoleezza Rice and her views about the current world situation. What I heard was that we have a worldwide problem. It's actually more complicated than it was after the Berlin Wall came down. If you all recall, we actually were thinking the Russians were not going to be the way they had been under the Soviet Union. China was not yet viewed as a national security threat. After 9/11, we thought we'd only be dealing with terrorism. Now we have terrorism and we have big power competition. So this is the broadest threat to the democratic world than we've had since before the Berlin Wall came down. I think Senate Republicans are going to take a good hard look at the supplemental request. We're probably going to have a number of changes we want to make in it. And of course, we want a very credible border security part of this bill. But speaking for myself, I do think it needs to be comprehensive. I think it needs to deal with all of these because they're all interrelated. I mean, what we have now is an axis of evil: China, Russia, and Iran. Iran taking care of funding all of these terrorists, being backed up by these two big countries. And you saw that President Xi said that he and the Chinese and the Russians are going to be friends forever. So this is a big crisis that needs to be confronted by the most important democracy in the world.
I was among those who just returned from a trip to the Middle East, including a stop in Israel. And it's been 17 days now since the October 7th attack. But I will tell you that the video and images continue to come in. The barbaric, brutal, just absolutely brutal attacks were nothing less than despicable. These were heinous and just unbelievable violations of humanity. And so as we think about how to respond, clearly the Israelis can't abide having a terrorist organization living right on their border. Hamas has to be eliminated, and we should aid and support in every way possible the Israelis as they endeavor to do just that. And of course, we have to remember that the animating force behind the evil in that region of the world is, as the leader pointed out, Iran. It is Iran that finances more than 90% of the weaponry, training, and everything that Hamas does. They are the force behind their other proxy on the northern border of Israel, Hezbollah, and of course the Houthis in Yemen, the Shiite militias that are attacking our troops in Syria and Iraq. This is an evil regime whose clear objective is to kill Jews and to wipe Israel off the map. That's the reality that is confronting the leaders in Israel right now. And Hamas, when they committed these incredibly violent and brutal acts, also preserved it, posted it on social media, celebrated it in front of the rest of the world. This evil has to be confronted. It has to be dealt with. And we need to do everything we can to support and defend our friend and our ally, Israel. And I hope that everyone in the neighborhood, countries in that area and beyond, will step up and do what they can to ensure that this kind of evil, this kind of terror, this reign of terror that the Israelis deal with on a daily basis is stopped in its tracks, and that region of the world can actually pursue peace and security for their people. And we ought to be doing everything we can to make that happen. And by the way, I would just simply, too, the administration needs to stay focused on getting the hostages out. There are a number of Americans who've been impacted by this, and we met with many families who are family members of hostages that are being held in Gaza today. And I would just urge the administration to work with our regional partners to ensure they're doing everything possible to get those hostages back safe and sound.
God bless Israel, and of course, God bless our Jewish brothers and sisters. So we saw on October 7th the savage attack of Hamas across the border. They broke through the border between the Gaza Strip and Israel. And we saw the savagery that followed after that attack and border crossing. And here in the United States, we have an open border, which terrorists and nations of special security interest are taking advantage of. We have seen over 8 million illegal entries into the United States since Joe Biden took office. Just in recent months, we have seen the number of those coming from special interest countries increase. 8,000 last month alone. And CBP says that's an increase of 1,000 individuals over August. We have seen 171 people on the terrorist watch list come across the border since Joe Biden took office. Israel had a secure border. where terrorists advanced. Here in the United States, we have an open border where terrorists advance. We can't continue to allow people to illegally enter our country, putting our own national security at risk. And I'm asking the administration to step up. Don't forget our friends in Israel. Don't forget them. Stay on this. But also, let's make sure we learn from this lesson and secure our own border and protect our own citizens right here in the homeland.
Hello, everybody. I'd like to also reemphasize what Senator Ernst has said in terms of our own southern border. We saw what happened in Israel with a border that was supposedly secure, and we saw with the will of the reign of terror how those borders can be broken through. And so when we got the numbers, interestingly, the numbers were dumped on Friday night at about 5 or 6 o'clock. For the month of September, 269,735 illegal encounters on our southern border, the highest month ever in the history of our keeping the statistics of illegal encounters at our southern border. The highest number ever. As she said, over 5 million during the course of the Biden administration, 2.4 over this year alone. How many times have we at this podium, all of us, said to the president and those that are in ability to make a decision and to change policy, how many times have we talked about this with no reasonable policy or change of policy to change this behavior? And now we have documented terrorists coming through. The American people are very upset about this in every state. Every state's a border state now, and we all know how much this is influenced. So when we look at what this supplemental is going to do, the last thing we should be doing in border policy is making more beds available or making it easier to go faster through the border so that you can wait another 8 to 9 years to get your asylum claim. That is a non-starter for all of us. This needs to be deterrence, needs to be a change in policy. It needs to be make sure that what we're going to do is see these numbers come down, not just by a little bit, but very, very measurably. So I look forward to the negotiations that are going to be going forward. Certainly all of these things are exceedingly important, but today this focus on our southern border is something that we cannot lose sight of in terms of how this affects our own national security, but the effects that it has globally as well. Thank you.
So the State Department has designated the following 4 countries as state sponsors of terror: Cuba, Iran, North Korea, and Syria. Since October 1st, hundreds of individuals from these 4 countries alone have entered the United States that we know of. In September, it was more than 1,000 been encountered by Border Patrol from those 4 countries labeled as state sponsors of terror by our country. A memo from the San Diego Border Patrol Intelligence Division just this past Friday warned of Hamas and Hezbollah terrorists crossing the border. Here's the warning went out Friday. Foreign fighters of Israel-Hamas conflict may potentially be encountered at the southwest border. And as Senator Capito just mentioned, as well as Senator Ernst, we're seeing an all-time record level of encounters in the month of September, which finished up the fiscal year, setting an all-time record for any fiscal year for encounters by Border Patrol under Joe Biden. And that doesn't even include the 1.6 million known gotaways, as well as how many unknown gotaways. We don't even have a number for that. Where are the people from these hotbeds of terror? The administration does not know. It is only a matter of time before something happens in our country in terms of a terror attack on our soil. This is no longer just an immigration issue. This is a national security crisis in the making. Not only is he shattering previous records in this administration, but showing a chilling trend that potential terror threats are using Biden's open border as an opportunity to flood our country. And look, that supplemental the Biden administration proposed up here is a joke. It is not about throwing more money at the border. We've got to slow the flow. It's about changing the policies. They don't need a lot more money in the southern border. They need to change the policies to remove the incentives to come across our southern border. Joe Biden and Senate Democrats need to get serious about the safety of our country, our national security, and secure the southern border before it's too late.
Yeah, I would just add one thing before taking questions. It's pretty clear that the supplemental that was sent up is just a starting place. We're going to go over it with a fine-tooth comb. As you can see, there's a lot of passion among our members about having a credible border security provision in there, and we're going to make other changes as well. Alex?
What is your expected timeline for negotiating a supplemental here in the Senate? And if the border security provisions slow it down, would you be open to moving Israel money separately?
Well, I'll take the last first. I along with Secretary Condoleezza Rice and the administration, feel that this is a worldwide problem and needs to be dealt with entirely, not in pieces. In terms of the timing, that'll be up to Senator Schumer. The Appropriations Committee is going to have a hearing next week. Our members, now that we have the package, are scrubbing it for recommended changes. And I think it will, except for the fact that it's worldwide, I think it'll end up having a number of Republican changes.
Leader McConnell, now that Secretary or Jack Lew has had his confirmation hearing, will you be supporting his nomination to be ambassador of Israel?
Yeah, I don't have any announcement to make on that today.
Leader McConnell, there's great concern right now that this conflict is going to expand into a regional war, possibly dragging in the U.S. along with it. There's already contingency plans being worked out to bring American citizens home from the region. Are you worried about that? And do you support sending in U.S. troops if Israel needs it?
Well, first, your question confirms what I just said earlier. I view this as a worldwide problem, both a terrorism problem that we're experiencing in Israel and occasionally against us, and a big power problem in Afghanistan, in Ukraine, and with the Chinese linking up with the Russians. That's a fairly new thing. And we have a worldwide problem that requires a worldwide response drafted by us. And that's one thing that conceptually, I agree that we have a worldwide problem. In terms of the details of it, we're going to have a lot of recommendations.
But aside from an aid package,
Yeah.
what about U.S. troops?
Yeah, I'm not going to. It depends on conditions. I have no way of projecting what might be needed down the way.
Leader McConnell, who is going to be leading the negotiations regarding the border with in terms of the supplemental? Do you have like a team that you are entrusting with that?
Well, we have a group that Senator Thune has been meeting with, trying to come up with what we think is a credible border proposal. I can tell you what it probably will not be is sending a bunch of money to Chicago and New York. We want to do something about the problems at the border.
Leader McConnell, how concerned are you about the House discussion?
I've done it before. It's been a year. We did it in 05 with Chad many times.